This is Recruitment Agency Ignition with Andy Whitehead. Helping you build your recruitment employment business fast. Using digital and automation and one-to-many systems, tools, and inbound strategies.
Hello and welcome to this week's Inner Circle call. This is following on from last week's call around the avatar. So just to put some context around what we're doing here, we are looking at creating a sales webinar for you, and that's actually prospecting to your clients and all candidates through the use of webinars. So just to recap, there are a number of different types of webinars. The key thing that lots of you have done so far is use webinars as a tool to leverage authority. So you've brought experts onto a webinar, you've hosted a webinar, and if you follow the process, you may have served it at the back of the webinar and followed up and have a lead process that way, but it's definitely got your positioning. Today, what we're looking at is a different type of webinar. We're looking at a sales webinar. And so a sales webinar, to put it in context, is as it says it is. It's a webinar which actually sells you to the prospect. So your prospect's going to be either a candidate or a client. Now the joy of this is that you can obviously look at numbers, you can look at metrics, you can systematize the process, but very simple. What we're looking at is this. We're looking at creating a process whereby we've got our webinar, we've got our prospects, and we'll put it into clients and candidates. They're going to come to the webinar. On the webinar, you're going to teach and sell, which is what we're going to be going through today. And this is where 99% of people fail with a webinar. Our webinars, we get on average, look at my whiteboard, about 43% of people actually attend. So register on the registration page. We get 50% actually attend the webinar, and we get an extremely high conversion rate. And the reason why is when we do our webinars, we teach and we sell. So we offer massive value on the webinar, demonstrating that we walk the walk as such, but we're offering huge value. But we're teaching and selling. I'm going to take you really under the bonnet of how this works. Now I know some of you, we've got one or two of our friends from the United States. Hi Charlotte. On the call who are looking to create sales webinars, and the way to actually do this is to always offer value. You don't want to go out and just ram and do the equivalent of a cold call on a webinar. You want to offer value and demonstrate that you can walk the walk. But essentially, you're going to bring your prospects to a webinar, you're going to teach, you're going to sell, and then you're going to take them into some form of follow-up process. So it could be a survey into your follow-up process. We're going to come to the steps that follow in later weeks. Today, what we're looking at is this, the content. So the actual content of the webinar itself. So that's what we're looking at. Now, put us in context. On the webinar itself, you've got your opening, you got your content, and you got your close. Now what most people do in a webinar, and when I say most people, I literally mean non-recruiters, I mean people who use webinars to sell. What they do is they go through this process and they treat the webinar like a sales conversation, and that isn't the way a sales conversation goes. So what you want to do is on the webinar, you want to go through these three steps: content, open, content, close. But there's elements in here which are absolutely key to getting your clients engaged. So we want to ensure that they do a number of things. The content actually engages the client, and this is the bit we're going to look at today. You actually engage the client. So if any of you have been on any of my webinars, whether you've been on a LinkedIn webinar, we spent 45 minutes of you actually following my steps. If you've been on a value add webinar, you would have seen that I engaged the audience probably between 10-20 times, asked for feedback, asked for their comments throughout the webinar. And the reason why is you want to be leading them and you need to be engaged with them. So today I want to focus purely on the content piece. We're going to come to the open, we're going to come to the close. Now typically we would look at the close first and work backwards, but what I want you to really do is follow on from what we did last week, which look at the avatar. So when you understand the avatar, you're going to understand the content. So if you haven't done the avatar process, then this next step will be, it will still be of value to you, but the results you'll get will be 100, 200, 300% lower than if you go through the avatar process. So I'm just going to recap on my notes I gave to you last week on the avatar. So on the call, we got some who actually weren't on the call last week. The avatar is understanding your prospects' hot buttons, understanding what drives them, and it really falls into 4 key areas. And you should have all done this. If you haven't, this is going to drive virtually all of your marketing. Once you understand this, as I said in last week's call, having now looked at some of your recent communications with your prospects, you don't understand your avatar, i.e. your client or your candidate, as well as you should. You want to know what keeps them awake at night. And so what it looks like is this. Last week we discussed the frustrations. I'm only going to spend 5 minutes on this. The fears, the aspirations, and the wants of your avatar. And you need to know this in explicit detail. So if I'm talking to recruiters, I can talk all day about hey Mr. Recruiter, you need to know about webinars. Webinars, they're going to save you time, they're going to get you in front of more clients, they're going to get you authority. These are key things, but they aren't emotional hooks. What they want to know is how they can get cash flow, which is going to pay their bills this month. They want to know how they can get their social status risen. So my avatar, as I went through the process last week, my avatar is a certain type of recruiter, and that's why you're in the inner circle. Or if you're from the marketing team, from your company, your boss fits the kind of avatar of the person I want to work with, someone who's hungry. So that's why you're in the inner circle. There are people who are not in the inner circle because they're not of that mindset. So all of you here are in it because you have a certain mindset. So you're a certain avatar. So in recruitment, there's hundreds of different avatars, but you fit the avatar of the sort of person I want to be working with. So you need to be understanding the same process for yourself. Your clients are not all exactly the same. As we mentioned last week, Matthew's clients in fashion, his avatar will be completely different from Alex's clients in financial services. Within financial services, you've got 5, 6, 7, 8 avatars off the top of my head. When I worked with a company around about 18 months ago, their avatar was of a city, an older city guy, 60, 65, who didn't understand the concept of webinars. In fact, never went online that often. So the avatar wouldn't fit that type of city worker, as opposed to the young man about town. So the avatar be specific to your particular niche. So within these 4 frames, you need to understand what are their towards, their wants and their aspirations, and what are their away, their frustrations and fears. Then what's immediate, what do they want immediately, and what's imagined. So to give you some context around that, imagined, aspirations, it may be a lifestyle change. It may be in 3 years I want to sell the business. Immediate, I need cash flow, I need it now. The fears are, I can't pay the bills. The wants and aspirations is, I want to be the number one in my niche, I want to crush my competition. But you need to understand these key elements of your avatar. If you haven't done that, this next part is going to be less effective. We're literally, I'm going to show you how to fill in the blocks one step at a time. I'm telling you exactly what we do in our webinars. I've never divulged this publicly before, so you're going to see how this actually works at the back end. So now we're looking at the actual content of your webinar. So remember, our outcome is for you to get in front of your client or your candidate on a webinar, and we want to sell your services. Now, what you always do in marketing is you only ask for the next action from your prospect which you believe they can take. So an equivalent would be, you've heard the phrase before, you wouldn't ask a girl to marry you on your first date. You may do, but that's not what we do in London typically. But so you always ask them to take the next action. So on your sales webinar, it could be that those you get onto the webinar don't know you and you need to have a follow-up system. Or it could be they're on your database already and you give an awesome sales webinar, and that might be enough for you then to get face-to-face appointments. It might be enough for you to get roles there and then. But what I want to go through now is the frame we're going to use. So on your webinar, the content piece, so we've got our open, we've got our close. In our content piece, we've got 3 pieces. We've got content 1, content 2, content 3. Now I'm going to show you in the following weeks how to really own the room and how to open. I'm going to show you how to transition, which is where most people fail any sort of sales webinar, transition into the close smoothly. But today we're focusing just on these content pieces. And when you get these content pieces right, you can use the same elements for all of your marketing. You can use this model for all of your marketing. So this is going to be extremely powerful. In fact, I go as far to say, if you're not using these 9 frames for all of your marketing, or for a lion's share of it, you're missing out on a key element. Now most of you've gone through this process, you've done something similar, but I want to take you through that step-by-step process now, and it's literally fill in the blanks. So there's 3 content pieces, as you can see: content 1, content 2, content 3. Now each box drills down into the same frame, the same model. And this is the model. Get the right pen. Never good at art. And you can draw this on a sheet in front of you now, and you can take this away, but we're going to actually have these written up into, and it's actually being done now, written up into templates. So for now, I'm going to take you through what these are. So I'm really excited about what's happening in the inner circle. Really excited. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. So this is content, whether it's content piece 1 or content piece 2 or 3, but you're going to have 3 pieces of content, and this is what you want your content to do. And I'm going to delve down to each one of these again. So the first box is, and these are sequential, you're going to pick a theme. So it can be what not to do, so it might be what not to do on onboarding. It could be a case study. It could be how you got your own story, how you went from A to B. But the first thing you do is pick a thing. The second thing you do, you're going to make it relevant to them. So you're going to describe the problem and the solution. So this is what's going to really hook your client in. This is the problem, I'm going to give you the solution. Now you don't need to actually have the solution yourself. It could be you're talking about a case study of someone else. So it doesn't have to be something you've done, and invariably it won't be something you've done. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to future pace. That's just an NLP term that you've all heard before, but essentially what you're going to do is describe the benefits and the consequences of not applying what I'm about to show you. Then the next element is you're going to teach and you're going to sell. Next element, key, you're going to show proof. You're actually going to show proof where this has been applied. So ideally what you're going to do is you're going to relate this back to how you, in your business, why your services are the right services to use. Then you're going to make it personal. So you're going to relate it back to your prospect. So how is it going to affect them? You're going to ask them a question, you're going to engage at this point. Then you're going to get interaction. So this is actually strategic Q&A. So you're actually going to open the lines. You're going to open for questions, but you're also going to be strategic with the questions and answers. The next box is the fork in the road. This is where you say to your prospect, so to your client, you're going to say, now you've got two options. You can continue doing what you're doing here, and it could be that they continue using ABC Recruiting, or it could be you're going to use us. And this is what we've done. But you're not going to say it in that frame. You're going to just detail the case study. And then what you're going to do is relate this back to the big promise. And the big promise we're going to come to in a later webinar. But effectively, that's going to be the hook for the entire webinar. So there's 9 boxes there. Does that make sense, everybody? Type in the box if that makes sense. You got any questions on that?
Discover how to build your recruitment employment agency using one-to-many automation and inbound strategies before anyone else in your market specialization. Check out recruitmentmarketinginternational.com.